Welcome to Weather to Watch. It is Tuesday, November 11th, 2025. As you see on the graph, there are a return to warm temperatures across the nation's midsection. In fact, almost all the country by the end of the week and into the weekend will be very warm. What's amazing about this, of course, is we just experienced an extremely cold air mass in the central and southeastern U.S. especially. I'll show you how low it got this morning. Also, there is a geomagnetic storm to talk about that could lead to a very good display of an aurora tomorrow evening if that just happens to hit at the right time after dark on Wednesday. We'll talk more about it. But before we get to that, hi, I'm meteorologist Ed Geller. We had an interesting kind of a two-part little storm system here. This snow right here, some of this at least, especially this part of it, was laid down by a clipper system. It kind of moved like that over the weekend. And then these are lake effect snows here. What's interesting about this, the traditional lake effect snow areas are, as I'm outlining here, something like this. Certainly the UP of Michigan gets it. You can see how these streak away from the other lakes, Lake Erie and Ontario, that they are lake effect snows. They just give themselves away. This one was a little different, though. Now, I'm from Chicago. We usually do not get lake effect snows in the Illinois side of this, or even the Wisconsin side of this, for that matter. But when this started, it laid down these snows at first when the wind directions were favorable. Then the upper level winds and the surface winds turned a little, and these snow bands that were coming in like this all of a sudden started coming in like this, and that led to some snow totals not only in Chicago and Milwaukee, but also trailing on down into much of eastern Illinois. So a little unusual. Here is the snow depth over the last 2 days. Chicago, 7.5 inches of snow. Milwaukee was up around, at least right on the Illinois-Wisconsin border. That exceeded 8 inches of snow in that area. And then South Bend, Indiana, 11 inches. These dark purple areas are 12-inch snow totals, and you can see how that, again, it did extend down. And even Champaign, Illinois, far displaced from Lake Michigan, got in on that lake effect snow as well. Let's take a look and just see what's going to happen. This is the GFS model. Over the next 3 days, all the snow in the U.S., what's left of it when that warm bubble starts really developing. But for the next couple of days anyway, this is a combination of weak disturbances and a little bit of lake effect snow as well. And you can see some totals in the higher elevations of Vermont, New Hampshire, again getting up around 10, maybe a foot of snow in some parts of New England. Well, here's a brand new segment on Weather to Watch. We'll call it Space Weather. There is a geomagnetic storm watch for tomorrow, the 12th. This is a G4, so it's a very strong storm, and it could lead to some disruptions of infrastructure. Generally what happens is if this really hits at the right time with the right intensity, it can overload power grids, things like that, but it's more known for its ability to produce auroras. And if you look at the text here, it says that an aurora may be visible over much of the northern half of the country and maybe as far south as Alabama to northern California. So that's actually a fairly significant development. So would there be a fly in the ointment on this? Well, maybe. This is the NAM, one of the weather models I look at, and this is just simply a cloud forecast. So it might be kind of touch and go in this area here. From the northeast through the Midwest and up into the Great Plains, a little cloud band there, also in parts of the South. But then again, there are many areas that are clear enough perhaps to see this tomorrow. Again, the exact timing is not always known until the sensors closer to the Earth actually start sensing the strength of that. So it could be exciting. Like I live here, it looks like it might be reasonably clear, maybe to go out and see. It would be low on the horizon this far south, but definitely a possibility if it's as strong and it aims itself at the right time as advertised and as forecast. We'll see. We'll just switch gears now and take a look at the 500 millibar, the visible satellite, and we'll look at the 500 millibar flow in a minute here, and you can see the sun setting. Look at the strong and powerful upper-level storm whose core is very cold, and it's what drove this high-pressure system all the way down to the south. I'll show you in a minute. Meanwhile, clouds are increasing in the west, and we just have a scattering of cirrus clouds in the central plains. Here's the 500 millibar flow. Sorry about that. There's that upper level low, very strong for this time of year with a cold core of air. Little disturbance kind of whipping through Chicago. That's what's going to help still activate those snows in the northeast a little bit. This right here is a ridge of high pressure, and this be watching this because as this starts to develop, it's really going to cause that warm up in the central plains. Meanwhile, this afternoon, that center of the cold high at the surface is right there in the panhandle of Florida. These are model temperatures, but we only have readings just barely clearing 50 degrees through the southeast and only in the 40s in Nashville and Knoxville, places like that. Meanwhile, a return flow on the western side of a high. Usually see a lot warmer temperatures, and in this case, no exception there with temperatures in the 70s in Texas. Now, if we look back this morning at low temperatures, or at least these were the readings at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can see the freezing line moved into northern Florida for sure, with the panhandle below freezing. Orlando had a low of 37 degrees. That tied their record low by 2 degrees. It's not the lowest it's been. The 37 was achieved on November 1st in 1 year, but still pretty darn cool for this time of year. And that high is still close enough for a freeze warning to be in effect for southern Georgia and northern parts of Florida for one more night, tonight, before that high finally bids farewell to the United States. Taking a look at the EPS average 500 millibar flow, I just don't have the right date on here. I didn't change that, sorry, but that's meant for this week basically. So we have a big ridge of high pressure developing in the plains. The cold air is departing. Again, this is an average over 7 days. The temperature departure over that time, of course, again, it's a 7-day average, so it's picking up. The cold still hanging on in Florida and the northeast, but it's also picking up the extreme warmth in the west that is going to indeed start spreading in this direction. As a matter of fact, on the high temperature departure maps here, you start to see a return to 60s, 70s, and 80s in the central plains here. This is where it's most above normal, where the dark reds are showing up. Eastern quarter of the country is still pretty cool. These are highs and departures on Wednesday. On Friday, look how warm South Dakota is, low into the low 70s, when they can easily be below zero with the right combination this time of year, or at least in the single digits, but complete opposite. Jet stream flow, though, cooling off the southwest a little bit, still hanging on to that cool air in the northeast on Friday, but on Sunday, much of the country still experiencing above normal temperatures, reaching even beyond that from Monday through Friday of next week. Basically the central and most of the eastern U.S. with a high confidence of above normal temperatures, especially in Minnesota and the southeast. Pretty high confidence of cooler weather with rain and cloud cover in parts of California and Arizona. I do want to show you that 500 millibar flow from two different model perspectives. Here is the ensemble for the GFS, the United States. This is on noon Friday. This is that big ridge of high pressure developing here with that, what looks to be now more of a cutoff low, at least initially. Remember I was saying on the last video that this might lead to a return of moisture and some severe weather here, and I think that's still going to be true. I'll show you the Sunday map in a minute, but let me see what the EPS looks like. This is the European version of the same thing, and it's pretty close. So there's a pretty high confidence of what's going on here. Now we switch back to the GEFS, and this is on noon Sunday. We have this little short wave right here, which I think is interesting. If we can get enough moisture to return back on this side, Texas may be under the gun for some severe storms. And then the EPS version of that same day and same concept, it's a ensemble model, shows it maybe a little bit back more to the southwest, but still a thing to be watched for Texas and maybe into Oklahoma and Louisiana coming up this weekend. Thanks for watching this edition of Weather to Watch. It comes out every other day, or as the weather necessitates. Please remember to share this with your friends, subscribe to the channel, or at the very least, like what you just watched. Thanks.